right, let's turn now to some presidential politics. Conservatives not too fond of Donald Trump as the GOP presidential nominee are trying to gather steam for the Dump Trump movement. Just a few days ago, the Detroit News advocated in an editorial that, quote, the GOP doesn't have to ride the Trump train out of Cleveland. Party rules allow for broad changes to the nominating process prior to the convention, so there's a roadmap for dumping Trump. For the sake of preserving their party, Republicans should follow it. So I'm going to start with the man who probably helped craft some of those words. Nolan, why did Detroit News put that editorial out?
Because I think, for the reasons stated, there's still time to avoid this disaster. And these sort of ardent Trump supporters believe that because they're so passionate and because there's this small group of Republican primary voters who are so passionate, that's going to translate over the general election. And we've seen polls now every day come out. Ballotpedia had a poll out this morning in 7 battleground states, all 7 of them, including Michigan. Hillary Clinton beats Donald Trump. Our pollster measured Republican voters a couple of weeks ago and found that 28% of them say they don't think they can vote for Trump.
Yeah, but you had the head of the Michigan Republican Party coming out this week and saying, come on now, we got to rally around our candidate. Number one, you shouldn't be following the Dump Trump movement. Number two, then you had Bill Schuette came out this week and endorsing Trump. So you still have you still have the establishment here in Michigan saying, we need to stick with that guy.
Part of the establishment here. You still haven't seen the funders rally to him. When you talk about a party's establishment, don't just look at the elected officials. The party's establishment are people who write the checks. And look at Trump's fundraising. $1.6 million. Candace Miller has raised more money in her drain commission race than that. This is going to be a disaster if they don't come to Cleveland and get a hold of themselves.
So, in theory, what Nolan's saying makes sense, right? It's a party, which is a private organization, sets its own rules.
So they can do pretty much essentially whatever they want.
Whatever they want. I think the consequences of doing what Nolan is suggesting would also be absolutely devastating for that party. This is a party that's, by virtue of having nominated Donald Trump through the primary process, is in a real state of flux, and there's a real question about what that party looks like, what it stands for, who leads it after the election. I think you dump gasoline on that fire by saying, all right, all these people came out and voted and chose one person, but we are going to choose someone else.
But we're going to invalidate all of that, all of those votes.
The majority of the primary voters voted against Donald Trump.
So this is one of the dynamics that led to changes in the convention system and the primary system anyway. The idea that somehow votes don't matter. I think whenever you open that door, you court suspicion, you court lack of faith, you court.
But a candidate has certain responsibilities, and they've nominated this candidate, and he hasn't fulfilled his.
What's he not doing?
He hasn't formed a national organization. He hasn't done fundraising.
But those are not things that you.
He's said since the nomination things that, in my view, disqualify him from the presidency. If you look at the polling. Just look at the polling. Almost anybody else beats Hillary Clinton. So the only Republican who doesn't beat Hillary Clinton is Donald Trump.
Hang on, let me ask you this.
You don't have to do this.
Let me ask you this. So, but if you dump Trump and you say, all right, forget it, and the Republicans find some other way and put some other candidate up there, don't you think he maybe runs as a third-party guy and says, well, forget it, now I'm going to blow everything up?
Well, he probably wants out of this.
He could. He certainly could do that. I don't see how the Republicans are any worse off. They may lose a third of their Republican voters if they dump Trump. They're losing a third of the Republican voters by keeping him on the ballot now.
More than that.
And you can't win this election just with Republican voters.
Well, you can't.
And he's got no appeal across the broad spectrum.
Well, and what you can't do, and this is what they won't talk about, is what you can't do is win.
But who won't talk about?
Republicans, the leadership. What you can't do is win an election with white voters. You can't win with just white voters. And if you look at the polls right now, that extends beyond Donald Trump, right? Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, they're not going to get women to vote for them. They're not going to get Hispanics to vote for them.
I don't know if that's true.
There isn't a lot of daylight between what Donald Trump is saying to those constituencies and what the other candidates are saying.
You've got to consider they're running against a very flawed Democratic candidate whom a lot of Democratic voters aren't excited about.
So who
has no appeal to independence.
So who are you going to nominate?
I think they should go to the convention and fight that out.
Who? But there's got to be someone there, though, that would be ready to step up to it. Who?
I still think you know, we still think John Kasich could do it.
Somebody who, so John Kasich, somebody who couldn't stay in the race, didn't win his own state in the primary. You know, I mean, I think that's a really, really crazy conceit. The idea that you can just pluck somebody
the guy in
who
sixth
voters
place
rejected,
and then put him up.
voters
You're
rejected
not going to
him.
win this election just with Republican voters. He has
don't think
broad
you're gonna
appeal
win that.
across the middle, and he could draw Democrats who are taking a look at Hillary Clinton and saying, "My God, she's got Nixon written all over her. We don't want to go there."
But if that were true, then why didn't more Republican voters support him in the primary?
Support who?
John Kasich.
We had a 16-person primary, and you had a very passionate,
How many people ran for
cultish
the...
group who got behind Trump. And if it had been a two-man race from the beginning, or a three-man race like it was on the Democratic side, Donald Trump wouldn't be the
But that's not what
hang on.
happened.
Let me say, we got 30 seconds left in this segment. Nolan, you're going to be at the convention.
Yeah.
So give us an idea of what you're looking for.
I think it'll be chaos. I think it's going to be an absolute disaster at the convention. One, I think all of the George Soros-funded anarchists will be shutting down the streets, so you won't be lucky to have a convention. You know, I think it's going to be a disaster.
And who's going to speak?
I don't know.
I mean,
having a hard time lining people up.
That's going to be that's going to be a big
Which
thing.
again is why I think the party, the funders and the party leaders should get on.
You don't think
this.
that?